Last time on Higurashi. This has been my demonetization speedrun. Thank you for watching. Ha! I'm just kidding. My channel's too obscure to even qualify for monetization. Please subscribe, release me from this hellish obscurity. In the last episode, I went for a live reaction because I wanted to enjoy the novelty of a hyper-violent horror series. But by this point, I think Higurashi is too complex for me to watch it casually. You know, what with the time looping and the multitude of unanswered questions. So for Season 2, When They Cry, Kai, I'm going back to my standard episode breakdown format, and I'll be focusing on just one of the arcs, one of the time loops. Not counting the intro episode, which ties in with the previous season's finale, Kai consists of 3 major arcs. Disaster Awakening, which lasts only 4 episodes, Massacre, which lasts for 8, and Festival Accompanying, which lasts for a whopping 11 episodes. I'm gonna go ahead and meet you in the middle, so let's just take a look at Massacre today, starting with episode 6, The Rules of the Maze.
昭和58年6月のひなみ沢に何度も生まれ、同じ時を経験する。
So Rika, trapped in a void between time loops, is revealed to be fully self-aware, recognizing and recapping the previous arcs. Even the ones that I didn't review, like the alien paranoia or the abusive uncle arcs. In the original visual novel, this is all tied to your multiple read-throughs, and I am a massive sucker for that level of meta. Rika falls unceremoniously into her next time loop, and immediately starts grilling Hanyu, the demon goddess who only Rika can see. She's also the so-called ogre from Season 1. She just has a really terrible PR team. Just awful public image.
覚えていますですか？その綿流しの夜のこと。
何言ってるんだよ。俺は去年はひなみ沢にいなかったんだ。綿流しを見るのは今年が初めてだよ。
After throwing out a few questions to gauge her friend's current level of insight, Rika ends up back at square one. Because despite living through her blood-soaked Groundhog Day for over 100 years, end of Season 1 Keiichi was the only one to ever retain memories of his alternate selves.
Huh?
私の気に障ることを言うからよ。私とあなたの感覚はつながってるってこと。
I don't think she needs to be reminded. You know, considering that she must have been brutally maimed to death alongside you thousands and thousands of times by now. We then cut to a medical examination of Satoko, who is suffering from Hinamizawa syndrome, which promises to kill her if the violence doesn't get to her first.
罰ゲームでメイド服を着ることになったら私に連絡してくださいね。
We also learn that Satoko's doctor and surrogate father is a disgusting groomer, which is uncomfortably played for laughs here. I'm sure this is a foreshadow of a particularly nasty timeline to come. Or one that's already happened. Either way, fuck this guy.
退屈なのか？
退屈とはちょっと違うのです。ただ、先の見えている展開に興味を抱くのは難しいのです。
Reliving a sequence of events that she's seen God knows how many times at this point, Rika is able to impress Keiichi with what seems like future vision, establishing a set of circumstances that are set in stone before they can actually happen. specifically a game of character and the seating plan of said game.
Rika ちゃん、男にとって宿命と運命という言葉にはとびきり熱い意味がこもってるんだぜ。この程度のことで軽々しく使ってほしくないな。
Standing in defiance of fate itself, Keiichi decides to kick off until they're given legally distinct pop-up pirate to play instead, drastically altering the current timeline by sheer force of will. I've read Oedipus Rex and I'm squeamish about Igor, so this just makes me a little bit more nervous, I'm not gonna lie.
なんだよこれ。
ケイちゃんには似合わないものもらったね。
どうせ。じゃあこの人形は。やるよ。
Still determined to invoke the butterfly effect, Keiichi takes his unwanted prize and gives it to Mion, even though his gut instinct told him that Rina would have enjoyed it the most.
This is about being random. Are you serious?
Mion not getting that doll would end up snowballing into all of this, if you remember this, so that leaves Rika and the gang in completely uncharted territory.
次回皆殺し編その2運命の変え方
That was just episode 1 of this arc, and I feel like it changes everything, establishing a ray of hope to offset the oppressive feeling of doom that Higurashi masterfully executes. Like, up to this point, this show has felt like the Dice episode of Community, except every single timeline we've seen are variations of the Troll one. Okay, let's carry on. The gang prepare to hold an auction at the festival, when Keiichi is offered a delicious ball of ohagi by Rina.
レナ、おはぎなんて作ったことないよ。
そっか。
Keiichi assumes that this is just deja vu, when, in actuality, he's recollecting the needle incident, which he actually brings up to everyone as a weird dream that he once had. Rina and Shion then respond by bringing up their own Season 1 nightmares, giving more credence to the idea that their bloody fates can be recognized and fully circumvented.
致命的な失敗をしないように最善の道を選んでいる。
After talking strategy with Hanyu, Rika decides that her best course of action is to inform all of the adults of the horrors to come, having faith that they'll believe in her cold, pragmatic tone, as opposed to the goofy persona that she puts on.
ちゃんと入れてあげますですよ。ニパー。なんでも聞いちゃう。これから話すこと、真面目に聞いてほしいのです。いいですか？
Learning through the grapevine that this timeline has already saved a life, Rika tests the efficacy of her newfound bodyguards by riling up the hoodlums from the Shion mass murder timeline.
俺らのバイクに何したっちゃい、おら！なんだその目は！なんだ！やめろ。
While Hanyu is pessimistic as ever, and let's be real, the fact that this series keeps going proves that she's probably right to feel that way, Rika is confident as ever.
今度こそこの呪縛から逃れてみせる。
夏のビッグイベントコミッケなのですよ。始発に揺られて頑張るのです。はい。
Episode 3 rolls around, with fate seemingly trying to correct itself in the most horrible way possible. Much like in a previous timeline, Satoko is pressured into moving in with her horribly abusive uncle, prompting Rika to call for his prompt assassination. But since the guy is already under police watch for murder, this isn't actually possible.
もういい、よくわかった。この世界が袋小路だということがよくわかった。お前は山奥で焼かれて死ね。お前は睡眠薬で自殺しろ。死ね、死ね、みんな死ね。
With Satoko already doomed, Rika gives up not only on this timeline, but altogether, resigning herself to an eternity of suffering until she goes completely mad. And where most anime use the 100-year-old in a child's body in a creepy, pervy way, this show likes using it in a creepy, spooky way.
まずはさとこちゃんに会って事情を聞いて問題があるようなら児童相談所に行っても無駄よ。さとこは過去に嘘の通報をしている。
Upsettingly, Rika is 100% correct on this one, having seen it all pan out the exact same way before. Shion decides to murder the abusive bastard herself, which Rika knows for a fact will butterfly effect into the entire village being gassed to death somehow. More on that later.
待ちな。
Keiichi decides to alter fate yet again, challenging Shion to kill him in order to prove her conviction. This scene is tense as hell, had me on the edge of my seat, and after our guy takes a goddamn chair to the head, Shion finally backs down. This is the same Shion who basically murdered everyone, in a different timeline, so holy shit.
少しは落ち着いたか？
Rika is still too crestfallen to care that much about this development, with this timeline still being a lost cause as far as she's concerned. But in spite of this, Keiichi and the gang all decide to take matters into their own hands, confronting the CCC themselves.
So that CCC won't let me be.
無駄だってことは分かってる。ただ、圭一たちがどうあがくか見物させてもらうだけ。世界が終わるまでの暇つぶしよ。
With the CCC being as seemingly useless as ever, everyone's confidence wavers. However, seeing how hard everyone came together and tried to change things hits Rika with a surge of emotion, prompting Keiichi to turn things up a notch.
さとこを救いたい。圭一！
我がひなみ沢の星前原圭一があなたの宿題をお引き受けいたしますのです。一教科につき1万円。
Episode 4 starts with Keiichi rallying his classmates, his teacher, and his principal all together to take action. But the bureaucratic stick-in-the-muds at the CCC refuse to acknowledge the abuse that is obviously taking place, and oh my god, wow, this is social commentary. There is no way that this isn't social commentary.
地獄の果てまで俺についてこい！
By rallying more and more people together and applying more pressure to the case, Keiichi makes it progressively harder for the CCC to dismiss it.
Me won't let the CCC be.
Which leads to this very interesting scene.
ねえ前原さん、喧嘩ってのは引き側が肝心なんですよ。やりすぎるとかえってややこしくなることもありましてね。
Our cop buddy reveals that the war between the families will add another layer of complication to the situation. And I have to say, I love how the threads of every single timeline come into play here. It's really goddamn clever.
さとこ！
さとこちゃん！
So this scene just kind of hurts to watch. It's genuinely just very upsetting. Satoko is back at school and, like many abused children would, insists that she's totally fine despite exhibiting really obvious symptoms of severe PTSD. Her friends try to comfort her, but she stubbornly denies that anything is wrong. Until...
どうしちゃったの？
おじがおじ。
You ever watch a scene and come out wondering if the writer is okay? I hope this writer is okay. I hope they're in a good place. Rika realizes that the CCC can't legally do anything until Satoko herself admits that she's being abused, and that as Satoko's best friend, she's the only one who can actually get that confession out of her. And while she is just a morbid spectator alongside us, she does still have her own responsibilities within the narrative itself. She vows to fight for her friends one last time before fully resigning to the infinite death loop.
私が昭和58年の運命に勝てること。
虐待の事実を 聡子が認めればよいのですね。僕が聡子に助けを求めるよう説得します。来週も見てくださいなのです。じゃんけんチョキ。
Episode 5 begins with external pressure bearing down on the group from the twins' horrible dogshit family, just as Detective Oishi predicted. And Keiichi decides that the best course of action is to confront the village elders.
まあ徒党組んでお役所に押しかける時代じゃないよ。
ダム戦争なんて関係ねえ。こいつは俺の戦争だ。
Keiichi might just be one of my favorite anime protagonists of all time. My guy doesn't take anyone's shit, no matter how many times he's been violently beaten and killed for it. Anyways, thanks to some insider knowledge from the twins, hinting at possible corruption from within the council, Keiichi is able to dish out another insanely charismatic speech, getting the council on his side.
私は前原君を支持するぞ。口は悪いが魂は間違っちゃいない。同感。役所と馴れ合いなんて恥ずかしい限りだ。圧力なんかに屈するな。
This kid is going to become the president of Japan if he survives all of this. With that, it's time to confront Granny. And this time without a taser.
嫌だと言ったらどうするんだい。
この場でばあさんの頭を叩き割ってミオンを新しい闘士にして首を縦に振らせます。
なんと昔よんねこのガキャ。誰かポンと持ってきよん。このクソ生意気なガキャ叩きって井戸に放り込むんがや。
Whoa, that escalated quickly. I'm surprised that didn't warrant our first death. Just for having the balls to confront her like that, Granny actually respects Keiichi enough to give him the okay, rallying most of the village to appeal against the CCC.
ご近所の皆様にご迷惑をおかけします。
どんどん人数増えてますよ。なんだかもうじき中に入ってきそうな勢いです。
ダメだ。絶対に中に入れるな。
Eventually, with enough lobbying and pulled strings, the director is forced to take action, apologizing for how much effort that took.
分かっております。
本当に申し訳ございませんでした。
Yeah. This is one of the most accurate depictions of protests having to escalate to unreasonable levels just to get one case dealt with that I've ever seen. The episode ends with a decisive call being made to the uncle, while Satoko lies beaten and bloodied. Dear God, this is horrible.
100年以上生きてるって言ってるだけ。だいたい私のどこが100歳のババアに見えるのよ。子供でしょ。子供は年金払わないしもらえないの。
Usually, when I script these VidAMs, I just write as I go alongside the episode. But the first 7 minutes of episode 6 had me glued to my screen, utterly racked with fear. It was beautifully horrible. Satoko is given one last chance to ask for help, to tell the truth, while her uncle keeps a firm grip on her shoulder, actively intimidating her. But Rika doesn't let Satoko suffer in silence, encouraging her until she can finally stand up against her abuser.
私を助けて。
ほんだれ。
あんたなんか出てけ。
サトコ。
大丈夫ですよ、前原さん。先ほど北条家に警察が突入しました。
For once, the cast have earned themselves a happy ending, and I regret to remind you that this arc is called The Massacre! I've never wanted to stop watching a show more than I do right now, and I've never felt worse about spoiling a plot twist, so if you have any intention of watching this show, based on what you've seen so far, honest to God, stop this video, like and subscribe on your way out, and go watch Higurashi. Or just read the visual novels, that also works, but if you're still here, it's time for the dreaded festival yet again.
こんな楽しい綿流しのお祭りは初めて見ますのです。
そうね。私も初めてよ。
Not taking any risks whatsoever, Rika puts contingencies everywhere, keeping Jiro and Mio from being drugged and burned to death respectively. A staple of every timeline up to this point.
気を利かせてくれてありがとう。
二人とも 本当に用心するのですよ。
驚いているのよ。あの子には神通力があるのかもしれないってね。私の夢が叶う日がやってくるの。
君の夢？
そっち
No, you bitch! Oh, we had a good ending! Just leave them alone! The cruelest irony of all this is that one of the adults Rika was relying on the most was planning to backstab her the entire time, faking her own fiery death with a surrogate corpse, and massacring the entire village with Hinamizawa syndrome, or, failing that, a deadly neurotoxin. Do you remember earlier when I said, well, butterfly effect into the entire village being gassed to death somehow? More on that later. Welcome to later! It all comes together horribly.
知識と勇気と血の結束があるのです。今度もそれでひなみ沢を守るのです。
Are you sure about that?
You know what? Our main cast have been quite proactive in this arc, so they should be ready for anything, right? Yeah, that's it! A little bit of violence against those who are threatening your families and loved ones. That's awesome. I can get behind that shit. You love to see it. And you know what? They're also using their signature weapons. They've got the bat, they've got the cleaver, the tasers. You know what? This is dope as hell. I totally fucking love it.
ブロッコリーとカリフラワー、緑色はどっち？
ブロッコリー。
正解。
Yeah, okay. There's really not much you can do against a trained kill squad and a mass-murdering government agent with a god complex. That's the kind of problem you should probably nip in the bud early. But what Mio hasn't accounted for is the girl that she's about to disembowel having New Game Plus on her side.
どういうつもり？楽に死ぬ気がないの？辛いわよ。生きたままお腹を裂かれるのは。忘れないためよ。あなたが私の腹を裂くのを私は魂に刻みつける。次にあなたに会った時、あなたが敵であることを思い出すために。
I'm not going to pretend that wasn't totally fucking raw. I've been resisting the urge to call Rika a stand user this whole episode, but that was a JoJo-ass line, and I love it. This time, when facing the void between timelines, Rika is not alone. Her friends are there with her, all determined to earn their happy endings on the next go-around. Meanwhile, this world goes to complete shit, as did so many others.
今こそ神は降臨した。我こそはお社様なり。
I think I'm done talking about Higurashi for a good while, up until next Halloween at the very least. It's up there as one of those shows that is so goddamn lore-heavy and so packed with gut-wrenching tension that I don't think my plot synopses can fully do it justice. Iris did allude to Higurashi going to complete shit later down the line, and you know what? Yeah, I might be down to see it fall apart, but then again, these two seasons with their question and answer dynamic just kind of work for me as a standalone thing. I particularly like that this arc wasn't all that gory. The show isn't fully reliant on shock value, which it could have very well ended up being. The violence here was genuinely earned, and it was all the more powerful for it. That bit with the broccoli, that is like a Higurashi meme. Understandably so. I really dig both Cry and Kai, and would highly recommend that you check them out. So with that, thanks to everyone who made this review possible. Especially Anonymous, Cassie Belmont, Dan Brown, Fitzwilliam Rams, Pixel Pusher, Ravi Poodle, Shameboy, Thomas Walker, and Tomb Pirates. And of course to Iris for being my Higurashi experts. I'm very sorry about all the details I probably got horribly wrong.